Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for April the 18th, 2025. 4/18/25 on your monitor or in your journal, or if you happen to write a check. The 16th Friday of the year and Good Friday, commemorating the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, a day of penance and fasting for Christians around the world, before the big celebration of Resurrection Sunday, or Easter Sunday. Although the financial markets are closed today in observance of Good Friday, today is not a federal holiday. The post office and most banks are open. 12 states, including my state of Florida, Texas, where I have also lived, Connecticut, and Kentucky, to name a few, do recognize Good Friday as a state holiday, meaning government offices and schools are closed in those states. Today is also the seventh day of Passover for Jewish people around the world. Florida Senator and former Governor Rick Scott arrived in Tallahassee, Florida last night after the deadly shooting at Florida State University. 2 people killed, 6 others injured.
Unfortunately, we had some shootings when I was governor. We worked hard to try to, as an example, after Parkland, we put together law enforcement, mental health counselors, educators. We had a historic bill that's working hard every day to keep our schools safe.
Rick Scott was the governor of Florida when the Pulse nightclub shooting happened in Orlando, the mass shooting at the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport, and the Parkland High School shooting back in 2018. And think about this. Some survivors of the Parkland High School shooting are now actually students at FSU and experiencing that again yesterday.
We have a bill called the Equals Act, which will help the FBI will spend part of the time through their national threat assessment to do things like, do the school shootings and things like that, to try to share information, to try to do that.
The 20-year-old shooter is a student at the university and the son of a local deputy. This is Leon County Sheriff Walter McNeil.
Unfortunately, her son had access to one of her weapons, and that was one of the weapons that was found at the scene. This event is tragic, but I will tell you this. We will make sure that we do everything we can to prosecute.
Former Secret Service executive and DHS advisor Charles Marino on Newsmax with Bob Brooks.
Threat neutralized. 9 buildings, though, are part of this active crime scene that is now under investigation. What does that signal to you?
Yeah, look, it's a large crime scene. To be sure, what it says is that this was a rapidly moving threat that was taking place. And, one thing that's important to note, these active shooters, they know that they're on the clock. They know that they have a short period of time before law enforcement shows up and engages them. And they're accepting of that risk. That's why many of these active shooters are prepared, unfortunately, to be killed by law enforcement. So they're looking to inflict as much harm in a short period of time while awaiting that law enforcement response. So if the 9 buildings is correct, and they've established that as the initial crime scene, then that tells me that this was moving. And one thing, additionally, this being such a large crime scene, it also reintroduces the possibility, even though it would be rare, of more than one shooter.
Fortunately, there was not more than one shooter. And there is some new information this morning on the shooter, at least from ABC News, saying that the shooter, the 20-year-old, was at the center of a custody dispute several years ago, and according to court documents, was on medication for mental health issues.
It's a horrible thing, horrible that things like this take place. Look, I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. I have been from the beginning. I protected it. And these things are terrible. But the gun doesn't do the shooting. The people do. It's, a phrase that's used probably too often.
President Trump getting ahead of the calls for gun control as he was briefed on the shooting during his meeting with the Prime Minister of Italy yesterday. The White House calendar said that he was meeting with the President of the Republic of Italy, Sergio Mattarella. That's what I told you yesterday. But it was indeed Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy.
To pay an official visit to Rome in the near future and consider the possibility in that occasion to meet also with Europe. The goal for me is to make the West great again. Okay, and I think we can do it together.
We can.
We will keep on work on that. I'm going to close. I want to say only I'm proud of sitting here as Prime Minister of an Italy that today has a very good situation despite the difficulties. A stable country, reliable country, 1 million more jobs in the last 2 years and a half.
Great.
Inflation is going down, so you forgive me if I promote a bit my country, but you're a businessman and you understand me. So migration flows going down 60%. So we are trying to do our best, but I think we can do it even better together. Also on Ukraine, I will close. Together we've been defending the freedom of Ukraine. Together we can build a just and lasting peace. We support your efforts, Donald.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we're doing well in that effort, but we want to get it done, and we'll see if we can. We want to save. On average, think of it, every week 2,500 people are being killed, mostly soldiers, Russian, Ukrainian soldiers. And if we can save those lives, that would be a very good thing. And so we'll see what we can do. And I think we're getting close, but we'll let you know very soon. And you've been very helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. President, how much longer does Vladimir Putin have to respond to your ceasefire proposal before you put secondary tariffs or sanctions on Russia?
We'll see what that will be. We're going to be hearing from them this week, very shortly, actually, and we'll see. But we want it to stop. We want the death and the killing to stop.
Mr. President, on Jerome Powell, you said that the termination of Jerome Powell cannot come fast enough. He says he won't leave, even if you ask him to.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But
do you believe
I don't think he's. I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast. Believe me.
So
yeah, go ahead, please. Question.
Are you trying to remove him, Mr. President?
Yeah, question.
Mr. President, yesterday Judge Boasberg, in a case against your administration, said the Constitution does not tolerate willful disobedience of judicial orders. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, you're going to have to speak to the lawyers. We have great lawyers. I can tell you this, we're doing a fantastic job of getting criminals out of this country who Biden allowed into the country. Hundreds of thousands of criminals, murderers and drug dealers. And I was elected because of the fact, I would say maybe that was the number one fact for a lot of reasons, the economy, a lot of things. But one of the primary reasons I was elected is because I said, I'm going to get the criminals that he allowed to come into our country so stupidly through open borders. I'm going to get them out. And I got a lot of votes, record-setting numbers of votes. As you know, we won everything. The popular vote, all 7 swing states, we won everything. And that's what the public wanted, and that's what I'm doing. But you have to speak to the lawyers because it's up to them.
President Trump in yesterday's bilateral news conference with the Italian prime minister, who extended an invitation to the president to come to Rome, saying maybe they can meet with the EU as she hopes to make the West great again. Tariffs and the war in Ukraine were the main focus of the meeting, and this morning, Secretary of State Marco Rubio shook up the world with these comments at the Paris airport as he left France after meeting with Emmanuel Macron about the war in Ukraine as well.
This war has no military solution to it. It really doesn't. It's not going to be decided with, neither side has some strategic capability to end this war quickly. And so what we're talking about here is avoiding thousands and thousands of people from dying over the next year. We need to figure out here now within a matter of days whether this is doable in the short term. Because if it's not, then I think we're just going to move on from our perspective. That the president feels very strongly about that.
That is indeed the big story today. And on yesterday's Newsmax Daily, I played some of the comments from Rachel Morin's mother, Patty, at the White House briefing. And I said, because I didn't play it all, that she described in great detail her daughter's gruesome murder at the hands of an illegal alien. Last night, she appeared on Finnerty.
Patty Morin, Rachel Morin's mother and grandmother to her 5 orphan children, is with us now. Patty, it is so nice to see you again. Appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for the invitation.
I know how difficult this must be. Caroline Leavitt yesterday said that the media has ignored your story for far too long. And then you got up there and did something that I've never seen before. Is that what you planned on doing, going into that much detail to make it clear to the media that Rachel Morin was a person that should be with us today who is not anymore?
I decided to do that because up until the trial, I actually didn't have all the details either. And as I sat in the trial and listened to all the evidence, which was so much evidence, over 500 pieces of evidence, it just fit in all the little puzzle pieces. It made me realize just how violent and gruesome and brutal the attack was. And, you know, media tries to play it off as these illegal immigrants, especially the criminal ones that have come into our country, that they're not as bad as we say they are. So I wanted them to understand just how violent and brutal these people really, truly are, these men are. And the only way to do that was to tell the truth and give the details.
Yeah.
And if you sat in that courtroom, you would have seen the pictures that I saw.
And then you were almost out the door and back into the West Wing of the White House, and you stopped and you turned around and you addressed the media in that room directly. I've never seen that done before. And you basically said, you know, tell the truth. Tell the truth about my daughter's story and so many other people that have been impacted by illegal alien crime, whether it's rape, murder, armed robbery, drugs. Do you think they will?
No. Do you know after that news press conference, only one news organization put it out to the media? All the other legacy and the left didn't post anything. They've been fed a narrative that the Democrats and the left want you to believe, and it's very delusional. It's like they live in a fantasy world, and they think if they keep telling you, and if they believe it themselves and keep telling themselves this false narrative, that it's going to somehow become reality. Reality is, these people are violent. They killed my daughter. They strangled her. They bashed her head in. Her brain, 3/4 of her brain hemorrhaged. They strangled her. They raped her. That's the reality. That's the truth. And that's what they don't want you to believe. They want you to think that we should be kind, tolerant, that we should,
I've had enough of the kind and tolerant, quite frankly. I think you've had enough of the kind and tolerant. Victor Martinez Hernandez in the courtroom, did he seem kind and tolerant at any point to you?
He had, from my point of view, had no remorse at all. I think he actually thought he was going to not be found guilty.
Yeah, well, that's the message Democrats have been sending these people. Come to America. It's going to be great for you, right? The senior senator
consequences.
Yeah, exactly. The senior senator from your home state, Chris Van Hollen, I'd never heard of him before this week. He flew to El Salvador yesterday to try and bring one of these monsters back to Maryland. What's your message to Chris Van Hollen, your senior senator?
I don't understand why he is putting above an American citizen a citizen from another country. This person is not an American citizen. They're from El Salvador. They have proven gang ties to MS-13, and yet he ignores my daughter's story. The Democrats have ignored and looked in the other direction and just pretty much downplayed the violence that has happened here in Maryland, but in Harford County, and then shows I'm champion, the rights of illegal immigrants. How about championing the rights of the people that you represent?
So I know that Chris Van Hollen never reached out to you after Rachel's murder. I guess I'm wondering, after yesterday and what you said in the White House briefing room and the impact that had on so many people, have you heard from any lawmakers in Maryland over the last 24 hours?
Except for the ones that I have worked with on Rachel's case for the prosecution, I have had no interaction with any. And when I say on Rachel's case, the lawmakers would be like the sheriff, the police, law enforcement.
Patty, thank you so much for being with us. Our hearts are with you. Our prayers are with you. And we're thinking about you this weekend, especially this weekend over the holiday, and your 5 grandbabies as well. Thank you.
Again, that is Patty Morin, the mother of Rachel Morin, the grandmother to Rachel's 5 children, on Finnerty last night. And while that interview was happening on Newsmax, Finnerty producers put up a graphic showing 0 minutes of coverage from the big 3, CBS, ABC, NBC, of Rachel Morin's killer being convicted back on Wednesday. 0. And 64 minutes, 57 seconds, to be exact, basically 65 minutes of coverage on the Maryland illegal immigrant Kilmer Abrego Garcia, the man that was deported to El Salvador, the man that Maryland Senator Van Hollen went to see, which, by the way, after posting several videos on social media of not being able to meet with Abrego Garcia, somehow late last night, Senator Van Hollen did finally have a sit-down with him at what appeared to be a restaurant, not at the prison. And Kilmer is dressed in blue jeans with a fresh button-up shirt, a Kansas City Chiefs hat, not in any kind of prison garb. But El Salvador's President Bukele said that pictures confirm Garcia is healthy, and now he will have the honor of staying in El Salvador's custody. More from Rob Schmitt.
Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. The Abrego Garcia clown show is rolling on today. At this point, you'd have to think Democrats have some sort of a humiliation fetish. It now appears nothing will stop this ridiculous crusade. In the last 36 hours, we learned a lot more about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who Democrats say was unjustly deported back to his home country of El Salvador, where Nayib Bukele put him in a gang prison. Abrego Garcia's ties to MS-13 come not only from a confidential informant, but Abrego Garcia was also arrested with known members of MS-13. He was wearing Chicago Bulls attire while living in Maryland, a sign of being in good standing with the gang, wearing Bulls attire. Abrego Garcia was saved from deportation by a judge because of fears that he'd be targeted by a rival gang back in his home country of El Salvador. Have you not yet seen enough to understand why this man is no longer in this country? The Democrats have not. Here's more. Yesterday, we learned that the wife, who's been crying for Abrego Garcia on national TV and claiming that the Trump White House disappeared her husband, was granted a protective order against her husband in 2021. She claimed Abrego Garcia punched and scratched her. She was afraid to be around him. It appears this happened while she was pregnant with his child. Recently, she's singing a much different tune.
Everything they're saying, it's wrong. My husband is a loving father, and what I know is he's an amazing husband, an amazing father. That's who he truly is.
Amazing husband and father. It's also insane that Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, after learning the raw story about this man that he had claimed was innocent, he's still in El Salvador, still there tonight, doing news conferences from this empty room. And of course, he was on Rachel Maddow last night.
My goal, Rachel, is to make sure that we keep the spotlight on this issue because I think it's unsustainable. It's unsustainable to continue to keep a person who has not been convicted of a crime in the worst prison in El Salvador. I may be the first member of Congress here, the first senator, but I can assure you more will be coming. And you cannot continue to keep this man locked up in this worst prison in El Salvador when he hasn't committed a crime. And so we're going to keep at this.
Yeah. So they're not going to give up on this, is the point. And more Democrats are coming in. Bear in mind that this is an El Salvadorian citizen who's now back in his home country. El Salvador has a legal system. If he's innocent, he can make that case. We don't control CCOT prison. We don't control El Salvador's legal system. He's back home. He's back in his own country. He was illegal here. He was going to get booted out no matter what. So Chris Van Hollen, the senator from the state of Maryland, is wasting his entire week fighting a legal battle in a foreign country, a battle that is fully untethered from the United States. He even said he wants to bring Abrego Garcia home. He wants to bring the illegal from El Salvador home. This is how these people look at your country. They don't think we have any borders on this country. They just think this is for everyone. The world to loot. He said it with a straight face. Let's bring him home. High-profile Democrats are actually jumping on this bandwagon along with him. Take a listen.
This whole thing with Mr. Abrego Garcia, it's that old wisdom and terrifying is if you're not speaking up for this man, there will be no one left to speak up for you.
Yeah, Tim Walz citing a poem written in 1946 about the complicity of Germans in helping the Nazis for this story. That's desperation. Liz Warren is making this her fight as well.
They want to have the American people say it's okay to just disappear people. Right. And somehow they think if they can make up lies about him, if they can do whatever they want, then the answer will be the American people will settle for this. We do not disappear people in the United States. Because here's the thing. If they can disappear Mr. Abrego Garcia, then they can disappear you.
Pocahontas says we can't disappear illegal aliens that they invited in. New polling shows Americans want everyone out, every illegal out, and totally disagree with her sentiment, especially the dangerous ones.
That is Rob Schmitt, host of Rob Schmitt Tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. So while Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen never spoke with or visited Rachel Morin's family and is now in El Salvador visiting an illegal alien that got deported from his state, Republican Senator Rick Scott is visiting shooting victims and their families at a Tallahassee hospital. And last Good Friday, a year ago, although last year Good Friday was in March, but 2024, then candidate Donald Trump went to the wake of a New York police officer that had been killed in the line of duty, NYPD officer Jonathan Diller. I'm sure you recall that, and it's hard to believe that it was a year ago. Time is going so fast. But Officer Diller was shot and killed by a guy who had been arrested 21 times. Again, this was in New York. Diller killed during a routine traffic stop. Presidential candidate, former President Donald Trump, was at that funeral at the wake on Good Friday. At the White House today, President Trump is participating in the swearing-in ceremony of his friend Dr. Oz as the new administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. As I mentioned earlier, stock markets and bond markets are closed for the observance of Good Friday. Be sure to keep up with all of the news today and throughout the weekend on Newsmax N2 and at Newsmax.com. Make sure you have the Newsmax app as well so you can stay up to date anywhere, anytime. It all starts with Wake Up America and Wake Up America Weekend Edition, which is at 7 a.m. Eastern. Saturday and Sunday report, America Right Now, Sunday agenda. There will be documentaries, special programming for the Easter holiday, and much, much more. I'm Tony Marino. Enjoy your Good Friday. Happy Easter. Happy Passover. Pay attention, be safe, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.